Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Martha Simmons with another session of Preaching and Preachers on Facebook Live via Restream. Good afternoon. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. We're going to tackle another practical topic. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Come on in and let me know that folk are out there. All right, there we go. We're starting to see people come in. Hey, Marco Fields, good to have you with me. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. Good morning to my folk on the West Coast, shouting out the people in the Midwest, and of course, the folk in the South and on the East Coast. Good afternoon. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. Come on in. I see people coming in slowly but surely. And when you come in, tag another person. Type in the name of another person and they can jump on right now, or this will be up on my page for 2 weeks. They can check it out then as well. Another practical topic: the church interview, interviewing for a church job, interviewing for a church job. Come on in, let's talk about that today. Dr. Allison Henderson Brooks, good to have you with me. All right. Folk are coming in. Give people a few more seconds to come in on it's kind of chilly Monday, but I guess it's supposed to be about this time of the year. It's December in Atlanta, but we don't have snow, so I am not complaining. Come on in and let me know that you are out there. And when you come in, type in the name of another person who will need this information. And they may not use it until 2025, 2026, but it's information. It's practical information that people can use. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started so that I can get through everything. I have learned that Monday is no longer the day on which most people view my broadcast, but I'm not changing my day. People do go back and watch it later, and that is perfectly fine. Like I said, the broadcast will be up for 2 weeks. Let's get started. As always, I am praying for those who are sick, praying for those who are experiencing a season of bereavement. And then today, we're just praying for so much of the chaos and the war that is abroad, especially in places like Syria and in Korea. Praying for those countries. What happens in one country affects all of us. The world is flat. We are all connected. Let me do one quick announcement. On December the 16th, next Monday, join me with two of the baddest sisters in the financial business, and we're going to talk about money and the church the next 4 years. We're going to have challenges we may not have had before. These sisters will break it down and let us know what's coming and what we and the church can do about it. Everybody needs to view that broadcast, Money in the Church, the next 4 years. That's coming Monday. Let's get to the topic of the day. The church interview, interviewing for a church job. All right, let me first start out by saying that just understand search committees, especially for those of you who have never interviewed for a church job. Let me just say a little bit about church search committees, okay? These people are typically earnest people with no on the job training. They were just called upon and they stepped forth for this important purpose. So remember that when you are complaining and saying what folk don't know how to do and that they're slow, remember that it's usually a cross section of the church, but all groups never really get represented. They may have only one millennial, somebody between 35 and 41 or 42 may only have one person. Um, it's typically older people, and usually men are in charge, but nowadays there are women on just about every search committees. Okay. And you may not see on the search committee any sign that these are educated people. That may not show up. But also know this, you can have an educated search committee and still have a mess. Okay. Let me say a little bit about, as you're talking about and thinking, as I'm talking about and thinking about searches, understand the time frame. This still bothers people. Understand the time frame. It takes 12 to 18 months for most to get most senior pastor positions. Okay. And if you get a church that doesn't have a great deal of infrastructure, yes, it can take 2 years. It's okay. Just move on if you don't want to wait. It is okay. Okay. Just don't complain about how long the committee took. As I said, these are not paid people. They may never have done this before, and they're doing it for free. And it's their timeline, not your timeline. We have to remember that. If you are seeking a job as a youth pastor, that's usually much quicker, maybe 6 months. If you have an amazing resume of experience, it may go even quicker, but that can take nowadays 6 months as well. Those who are applying to be a worship an arts leader, minister of music, whatever the positions are called these days, that process can take 3 to 6 months. Just talking about the timelines, if you're applying to be an executive pastor, 3 to 6 months is the typical timeline. But again, as I said, if the process takes longer, you don't have to stay in the process. Don't complain and don't get stressed about the process. It's their process. They set it up, not you. You don't know what else is going on in a church during a process, whether the church has a pastor or does not have a pastor. So many things happen. Also, because there are so many churches open now. Everybody knows there are a whole lot of churches open now. People are hiring consultants to help them get a church. Don't have a problem with that. Just don't hire a consultant to help you get a 30 to 50 member church. You can do that yourself. And most of the organizations that are selling these services, that's all they're offering you. 30 to 50 members, you can do that yourself. And that's also a church typically where you will have to be bivocational. Don't pay anybody for that. Don't pay anybody for that. Okay. And yes, there will always be one or two large, meaning 1,000 or more members, churches that come open almost every year. So if that's what you're looking for, then make sure that your resume points in that direction. Um, but again, don't, like I said, don't fall for these people offering these services for 30 to 50 member churches. because that's all they're getting you. Okay. Also, in terms of the search process, just be clear. The outgoing pastor may make a selection and the process is just for show. That can happen. That can definitely happen. Uh, Hold on. I don't know why my phone is ringing. I thought I turned it off. Uh, Thought I turned it off. Okay, somebody just told me that the live ended. Let's see what we got to go do here. Tell me if you can still see me. Tell me if I'm still live. Let me know. Let me know. Somebody let me know. I just got a message that the live has ended. Let me know if something went wrong. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I don't know why that person said that the live ended. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Don't know what's going on. Anyway, let's get back to it. Let's see. I was talking about getting to the interview. Like I said, pastors may, the outgoing pastor may be behind the scene and have made a determination, and the committee is just doing a process for show. That does happen. I hate that people are put through that, but it does happen. It just does. Okay. Also know that you might have a retired pastor who is controlling the process. There's nothing you can do about that either. Nothing you can do about it. You need to take care of your part and don't worry about what the church is doing. Just do what you can do. If you are out for an executive pastor position, a pastor is going to make the ultimate decision, but there may be other people in the church who also assist in the process. Don't be surprised by that either, because if you're the executive pastor, you will be working with more than the pastor. For church musicians, do not be bothered by the fact that you have heard that 20 people are applying for the position that you applied for, either 40 or 50. Okay, because that does happen, because so many jobs for musicians are for small churches and they're not full time. So when one of those jobs comes out for a church and it's full time, a lot of people will apply. They just will apply. Okay. Also know that, and I hate to say this, but it's true, that you may do an interview and they may call you back to preach 4 or 5 times. Why? Because they don't have anybody to preach. And you will think that they are trying you out. What they're really doing is just filling their pulpit. I hate to say it, but they are, and you may or may not get the position. So we've talked about the time frame, which can be lengthy in some cases, but while you're waiting, especially in 2025, 2026, here are some things that you can do while you are waiting. Okay. Number one, fix your credit score. Fix your credit score. Most churches, even the churches that have 30 members, are looking at folks' credit scores. Your score needs to be at least a 650 or a 750, in that range, 650 to 750. So while you're waiting, keep increasing that score. That way, if you get an interview, if your score was originally a little bit lower, you can say, here's what it is now. Also, while you are waiting, expand your areas of expertise. So if you only know a little bit about technology, you have an opportunity to learn. You may need more on your resume. Say, for instance, if you want to be the worship leader, but you don't have a lot of experience as a director, go get the experience, okay? You may not be that good with hymns. Use the time wisely. Learn more, okay? Preachers may need on their resume more that says they can work with youth. Go get the experience. Go work with a neighborhood youth group, a group at a college. All of that matters, okay? Then, and this is a real big one, people will enter ministry and say they've worked at a church as an associate, and then for some reason they left that church and they have holes in their resume, sometimes big holes, okay? You need to, while you're waiting for the interview, learn how to talk about those holes in your resume. Wherever possible, merge secular work with ministry work. So if you were a teacher, a musician, a tech, etc., all of those things you can talk about in terms of ministry. If you taught in a school, you are a teacher. You're a teacher and you can teach in a church, okay? It's harder if you were selling clothes and cars and shoes, but as much as you can, close those holes. Holes are just that they're difficult for committees, okay? And while you're waiting, again, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, or maybe it's a short period. Uh, During that period, if you need to, you can lose some weight. During that period, you can get your teeth cleaned, get your teeth done, get all of those medical things done that you need to done. You get your cholesterol checked, get your diabetes checked. Um, get a breast exam, a colonoscopy, get all of those things done while you're waiting. Don't just wait. Okay. Also, if you decide to apply for a church as a senior pastor and you're currently employed as a pastor, your church could find out. You just need to prepare for that, especially if you do not get the job. You need to know that. You really do need to know that because it can happen. We saw last year 2 committees, they put the search process online and the people were outed. And of course, everybody didn't get the job, but their churches knew. So you need to also be prepared to deal with that. Now, let's talk about the interview itself. And if you got a question, this is a good time to ask it. And I hope you got general questions, not so much your specific personal questions, but I'll answer as many as I can. This is Dr. Martha Simmons with another session of Preaching and Preachers. If you are on, type in the name of another person who needs to view this broadcast. They can watch it now, or it will be up on my page for the next 2 weeks. Okay, the interview itself. Let's get to the interview. So they have chosen you. You've gotten chosen. Whether the job was for a minister of music, a youth pastor, senior pastor position, or an executive pastor position, you have been chosen for the interview. Okay. First, if it's an in-person interview or an online interview on Zoom or something like that, wear a dark suit. Male or female, wear a dark suit. You can wear a bright shirt or a blouse. A tie is not necessary, but wear a suit. That way, there's nothing to guess about. Whether you're overdressed, underdressed, wear the suit. Wear a suit. And like I said, and it also applies if you are a candidate that is for a youth pastor position, worship pastor, it's a job interview, wear a suit. I know we're more dressed down today, and perhaps when you begin working, it will be a dressed down position. I know that there are young pastors who will say, I'm going to dress down and then tell them this is how I'll dress when I'm working with the young people. No, not for the interview. Not for the interview. Okay. We wear a suit. Just wear a suit. Okay. Like I said, you don't have to wear a tie, wear a suit. If you're on Zoom, wear a suit. Just wear a suit. Okay. That way, there are no issues about attire. Okay. And before you're right at, let's say this is a couple of days before the interview, get a haircut. Get a haircut. As the kids say, you want to look fresh. Get a haircut. If you have a long beard, cut it down. Just, I'm telling you, cut it down. Cut it down. It'll grow back. So you can grow it back later. But if you have one, cut it down. It bothers people when they see an extensive amount of hair on someone's face. As one lady told me in a search committee, they look like they're trying to hide something. Just cut it down. Just cut it down. Okay? You can grow it back later. Then also, women, get your hair done a day or so before the interview. Just get your hair done. Get whatever style it's in, get your hair done. All right. Then, like I said, it's time for the interview. Men, and I know it's cool and it's fly and it's something people do. If you got an earring in your ear, take it out. Just take it out. Just for the interview. And when you're preaching, if you get an opportunity to do a candidacy sermon, if you are the youth pastor, applying for a youth pastor position, executive pastor position, minister of music, take the earring out. Just take it out. Women don't wear huge earrings. I know they may look cute. You may think they look cute. Take it out. Just take it out. Okay? And also, definitely, women, don't do that. I have 5 holes in my ear and all of that kind of stuff, and I'm showing you all of my ear. No, not for the interview, okay? Whether it's on Zoom or in person, make sure you show up 15 minutes earlier. Then you're on time. 15 minutes earlier. If it's on Zoom, you're 15 minutes earlier. And make sure you know how to operate Zoom. It may sound like everybody knows. No, everyone does not know. People get on Zoom every single day and don't know really how to handle being muted and unmuting and all of that. You don't want to be fumbling with the buttons. So you want to get on early, make sure everything is straight, make sure your microphone is working. And if you're on a computer, phone, whatever, clean the screen. Clean the screen. Just get some glass cleaner, clean the screen, okay? If you need water, because it will probably take an hour, have the water next to you in a glass, not in a bottle. Not in a bottle. Bottles sweat. Bottles make sounds. Don't have that. Okay. Now let's say it's time for the interview and it's online. It's on Zoom or a similar platform. You need a portfolio in front of you. And that's simply a black folder two-sided, and it has pockets, right? And as soon as you come online and they're introducing themselves or saying hello, if they don't introduce themselves one by one, you ask them to introduce themselves, and then you write down their names according to what they are wearing. Just write it down. You people love to be called by their names. They love that, okay? So write down the names. If you're in person, shake everyone's hand and ask them their names. And as soon as you get back to your seat, write down the names according to what the people were wearing, okay? And so everyone, as you're addressing people, it's brother and sister or deacon or reverend. You might have some reverends on the panel, but it's brother or sister, deacon or reverend, unless they introduce themselves as doctor. If they introduce themselves as doctor, you call them doctor. Okay. Those are just some basic interviewing things. Okay. Now, let's say it's an in-person interview. And I know these things sound like basics, but after doing this for over 20 years and helping to place pastors, it's still happening. Number one, no gum. I know that there are people who do gum because it relaxes them. No gum during no gum during the an interview. Okay, whether it's in person or online, no gum. No shades. Someone tried to tell me once that their shades were prescription. And I said, that's fine. You still can't wear them during the interview. You need to put some contacts or some glasses on. No shades. It doesn't matter if it's a youth pastor position. No shades. Okay, absolutely no shades. No tennis shoes or gym shoes. And I know that people are now preaching in gym shoes. I'm clear on all of that. Do not wear them to an interview. Do not wear them to an interview. Okay? Do not. Nor flip flops. Nor, I'm telling you, it's been done. It was done last year by a couple of candidates. Don't do the flip flops. I don't care if it's 100 degrees outside. You don't get to do flip flops either. You don't get to do bangles, 4 or 5 of those things on your arm. No. If you got 2, that's more than enough. All right. More than enough. If you are online or on Zoom, leave your phone in a safe place in your car or at a hotel. Do not take a phone into an in-person interview. Just don't have it with you, whether you're on Zoom or in person. Leave that phone outside of the interview. It's your interview. Everything else can wait. Do not. And I'm just, this one is just getting on my nerves these days. It's just getting on my nerves because I'm hearing about these phones ringing in the interview. I don't care if you tell yourself, oh, I will shut it off. I'm telling you, things happen with phones, okay? I thought mine was off earlier, but it rang. Also, just don't bring the phone in. Now, other things, those are things don't do. Here's some things you need to do just before you get to that interview. Go to the restroom. Just go before you sit down with the committee in person or online. Make sure your shoes are clean. I know all of this sounds unimportant to you, but I promise you it is important. It is important. Every little thing matters. So check your heels, dusty shoes. That's what that going to the bathroom, that last check. check your shoes, okay? Do not use, if you got to do a breath mint, and that's fine, make sure it's something like a Tic Tac, not peppermint that you're sucking on, okay? Uh, don't do that. Use lotion on your hands. Men and women. I'm not clear on why men believe it is okay to sit in an interview with ashy hands. It is not. It is not. Put some lotion on your hands, okay? Uh, and of course, men and women, get your nails done. And women, avoid the long, pointed nails for the interview. You can do that later, but avoid them for the interview. You don't need 10 rhinestones on your nails so everyone can see them, okay? Less is more during the interview, all right? Now, let's get to the interview itself. So you sat down and you started to talk, and one of the first things that comes up is your credit, okay? Do not over explain bad credit. Don't over explain it. Do not over explain it. Okay? If you got bad credit, you got bad credit. Like I said, that's what that waiting period was for. You were supposed to be fixing it. And I know that people will say, well, I want to explain to them that my mom got sick and I was taking care of her. My child got sick. My house burned down. All of those things can happen, and committees know them. But bad credit is still a red flag. It's still a red flag. The most important thing you can say about bad credit is that you are working on it and you are paying on every single debt that you have. Every single debt that you have. Okay? Other than that, move on. Move on. After you've simply said, you may say, well, I am taking care of somebody said they have chronic ashiness. Well, then you want to use some Vaseline, my friend, or baby oil. Okay? So, but whatever you need to do, you can't sit down there looking ashy. All right. Then here's another big one that preachers really, really over explain. And I practice this one with candidates so that they don't do that. Why were you released or fired, however you want to talk about it, from a church? Do not over explain that either. Do not. Somebody said use coconut oil. Okay. You get the message. Do not over explain why you were fired. Or you might say, well, I chose to leave. Okay, you chose to leave. Do not over explain why there was an end date on your resume for working at a church. You and the church simply had irreconcilable differences. You wish them well, and they are a great church. And if a committee member, and they will, because this is important, a firing or you're leaving a church, that's important. They might push on it a little. If they push, keep repeating that they are a great church and you wish them well. It doesn't matter if they were an awful church. It doesn't matter if they are very bad at church governance. It doesn't matter if one family is running the church. Do not put a committee through that. Okay? Be a professional. Be a professional individual. You wish that church well and move on. Move on. And like I said, if they try to keep you talking about it, keep saying good things about that church. Then you could get asked, why haven't you attended an accredited seminary? And more churches have figured out how to look up accredited seminary, and what is on your bio is a bunch of Bible colleges. Well, you got to the interview. So that said that they weren't overly concerned about it, but if they ask about it, you need to have a good answer. You need to have a good answer, okay? Because part of the committee may have accepted that on your resume. Other members may not, but don't talk down education while talking up the Holy Ghost. Don't do that. Just like you don't talk down a church that fired you, you don't talk down education. Even if you don't believe in it, you don't talk it down and think that you're talking up. You're doing something because you're talking up the Holy Ghost. No, don't do that. But have a good answer ready as to why you have yet to attend an accredited seminary as opposed to just a Bible college. Now, the other thing, and this one happens all the time when I am working with clergy, and I'll do a mock interview and I'll ask them a question, and they'll say everything but answer the question. Don't go around and around and around. Answer the question. That's why you practice. Answer the question. You know what the hard questions are likely to be. Answer the questions. Committee members, I don't care who they are, they hate when people don't answer questions, and then another member of the committee has to ask the question. Pastor just was telling me about someone who applied to be their minister of music. And the people were trying to find out how much they knew about hymns, basically. And the person went round and round, and they were telling them the history of hymns and all of that kind of stuff. But what they didn't answer was whether or not they were familiar with hymns and could read music. And finally, they said no, they couldn't read music, but they could play anything by ear. But that took a while to get to. Okay, you gotta answer the question. Even if it's a difficult one, you have to answer the question. Now, I can't go through every question that is likely to be asked in a church interview. That would take 2 or 3 hours. But here are the typical ones. For 2025, 2026, here are the typical questions that you will be asked in some fashion. Some person said the person didn't know any hymns nor read music. That was pretty much the case. They really didn't, but their resume was glowing. Anyway, okay. What are they going to ask in the interviews? Number one, and everyone knows this, they are going to ask you about technology. They're going to ask you about technology in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, you might be sitting there saying, there are 10 old people on this committee. Okay, I'm an old person, but I would definitely ask you about technology. Now, what most of these search committees are doing now is you'll see one millennial, just one on there, and they'll give them the technology question. And you might be saying to yourself, even if I tell you, you won't know, you'll be surprised. Okay? Don't assume that people don't know. Learn the basics. If you don't, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of you all, no matter how young you are, you don't know much about technology. You just know how to operate your phone. Okay. You just know how to operate your phone. You've got to give some specifics about technology, such as this is how AI can help this church. Okay. Be specific to that particular church. Show them that you have studied and you're familiar with the church as much as possible. Okay. You might say, these are the main giving platforms for churches, and here is what I would consider the best platform and why. Then you could say, might say, here are some of the basics for streaming online, and here's what churches need to be aware of. Be ready to answer the technology question. Do not assume that the person didn't know. Excuse me, that the people sitting there won't understand technology. And for those who don't, they still want the pastor to know something about it. If you are applying for an executive pastor position, you got to know technology. You just do. I don't care if you worked in churches 20 years. You will not get the job if you don't understand basic technology. And I'm not talking about can you do a spreadsheet? Okay. You've got to understand basic technology and how AI is impacting churches. Maybe something about Canva. Um, and all of the different kinds of platforms that churches now need, especially small churches. Small churches need technology because they don't have as much money. So just know that. Study the answer. Study it. Okay? And nail that one. Okay? Then if you are not asked about technology, let's say they don't ask you, you should bring it up in some way anyway. That will make you look like you are informed and you know what you are doing, and you get points in people's minds for teaching them something. You get points for that. Okay. Then another question you're going to get asked if you apply for, let's say, the senior pastor position, you're going to get asked about vision in some shape, form, or fashion. And people said online, you can't do a vision statement for a church because you're not the pastor. You don't know those people. Someone else said, people told me, don't say anything about vision. Okay. Absolutely give a vision answer. Do not say to a church, there's really nothing I can tell you about vision until if I became the pastor, then we would have a vision discussion. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. You must have a vision answer. Now, I'm going to give you a vision answer that always is a good answer. Always is a good answer. And you can take this answer and develop your own answer from it. Okay. Knowing, uh, let's like I said, the question will be something like, knowing what you do about this church, give us a 3 to 5 year plan or vision for this church. They might call it a plan. Okay. Your answer is, although I have familiarized myself with materials that provide information about the church, I can still only speak generally because one does not really know a church until he or she knows the people of that church. That said, this is my sense about you as a people. It's my sense from looking at your history, listening to you speak today, that this is a church that seeks to liberate people spiritually, socially, and economically, and that you want to exalt God through excellence in worship, in your witness, and your works. If that is accurate or close to how this church wants to view itself, we have the beginnings of part of a mission statement and our focus for constructing a vision or short-term plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, hypothetically speaking, in establishing a 3 to 5 year plan, I would ground it in the two components that I mentioned earlier: liberation, that people experience spiritually, socially, and economically. And second, the excellent exaltation of God in worship, witness, and works. That's where I would ground the plan. After this, I would enter into a period of prayer for discernment, along with a period of listening to each of you as the people and the leaders, so that we are all on the same page as we all listen to God. The next step would be to determine personnel and assets we need to carry out the plan or the vision. Uh, some things we'll be able to do in a year, some things may take longer. After we've done all of that, then I'd make sure we had mechanisms to celebrate each accomplishment and to make sure that we advertised online and all of the platforms. And finally, I would say we need to do an assessment period to determine what we could have done better. Were we fiscally responsible, etc.? Ladies and gentlemen, that is a vision answer. That's a vision answer. Parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a vision answer. And as I said, you can take any part of it and do what you want. Notice, it was a general response, but it was a thick response. That's what churches want. That's what churches want. Okay? Everything might be over right there, because of that one answer. Okay? That's a vision answer. Now, they are going to ask you in some shape, form, or fashion about working with all age groups. Okay? And they'll ask you, they got your resume, but they're still going to ask you, be prepared by age group. Do not say to a committee, I get along with young people, elders, millennials, and everyone. I love working with people. I work good with all groups. That's a general, not a specific answer. Give an answer that shows that you know the generations, so that you mention some of their qualities. For example, you can say, I work well with millennials, basically people from 28 to 43, because I've worked with millennials in designing community outreach plans. I've worked with millennials in visiting shelters. I've worked with, give them something specific. Then you can say, I've worked with children. I taught children in Sunday school. I worked at a grammar school to help children increase their reading skills. We have difficulty in many of our schools. Our children are behind. So I thought it important to go to a grammar school. And then the same for seniors. Do not give general answers. Be specific. Show them that you know the age groups. And if you don't know them, learn them. You know, at that period while you're waiting for them to respond to you, you know that's a hole on your resume. Learn. Do some work with them. Okay? Now, they also they're going to, in some shape, form, or fashion, and it may not be legal, but they're going to do it anyway. They will mention your marital status. If you are married, they'll ask you perhaps, what does your spouse do? What does your spouse think about your being in the process? And if you're single, they may even ask about, are you planning to get married? And like I said, all the questions may be illegal, improper, etc. But as I said, these people weren't trained for this. So just be clear, okay, that this is a professional interview, okay? You have to give a professional answer. So you can't say to the committee, I'm not answering that. That's an inappropriate question. Well, you can say it. You can say it, and you won't get the job. You have to answer the question and answer it appropriately. You don't have to be long-winded. You don't have to do any of that. Okay. One young person said, well, I am single, and we will see what God has in mind for the future. Another person named 2 or 3 impressive single senior pastors. So there are a variety of ways to answer the inappropriate questions. They just know that they can happen. Just know that they can happen. Okay. Now, let's say you've done the interview, an hour has gone by, and things have gone pretty good. You had a couple of things that you had to explain, and they say to you, do you have any questions for us? Do not ask, how much does the job pay? Do not ask. It is inappropriate at that moment. Okay, there's a moment when you can get to it, but it's not that moment. Okay, you can ask, what are your next steps? And they may or may not answer and simply say, we'll be in touch. They may do that. But here's what I would recommend that you ask. You know the names of the people. You've written them all down by what they were wearing. Whether you are a minister, music job, executive pastor, youth pastor, senior pastor, if there's more than one person in front of you, and this is especially the case for senior pastors and executive pastors, I would say, brother or sister so-and-so, give me a sense of this church family. Personally, what's been your experience with this church? How has it impacted your life? Okay. And personally, I advise clergy to ask the person who hasn't talked a lot. You're not asking the chair or the vice chair or clergy member that's on the committee. Ask the person who hasn't talked a lot. You'll be shocked by the amount of great information you will get. Another question you can ask is, brother or sister so-and-so, what would you say you love most about this church? And what do you believe needs work? Okay. What do you believe needs work? And I'm telling you, you're going to get a good answer. You're going to get a pretty good answer. And they might say things that people on the committee didn't want them to say. But you're going to get a good answer, especially if you first say, tell me what you love. Tell me what you love, and then tell me what do you believe needs work or what would you change, okay? So that will get you through the process. I was looking to see if people had questions that they wanted to ask. Go ahead and post a question if you have a question after hearing what I've said. Go ahead. We've got 3 or 4 minutes for you to ask the question. Okay? Go ahead and put your questions up. Go ahead and put your questions up. Let me see. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Someone said leave the episode up so I can come back to your vision answer. It's going to be on my page for a couple of weeks, and all you have to do is record it. Okay. And like I said, you don't have to give the whole answer. You can take portions of it. But I wanted you to see what a thick, complete answer sounds like. All right. I wanted you to do that. All right. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions. I guess I'm still on. Yeah, it says I'm still live. I'm not seeing people with questions. Okay, then I guess we are pretty clear. Someone asked, what role should the senior pastors play in assisting the associate ministers in the search process? Well, it depends upon your skills. Okay. Some senior pastors know everybody. They know the processes. They know the heads of associations. They know all the preachers in particular cities. And so they can be very helpful. They can help you practice. They can tell you things not to address. It just depends upon your skills. Dr. Lester Taylor, you have so many skills, you could help all of your associates. Unfortunately, that is not the case for many clergy, especially those who are really not trying to help their people go out. They'd rather keep them around. But if you can help, by all means, help. It's a wonderful thing to have a pastor who can help. Someone else said, I've been told to be prepared to ask some questions in an interview. What are the top 3 I should ask? And I just went over those. What do you love about this church? What do you believe needs work? What's been your experience and how has this church impacted your life? Those are the questions. And like I said, you can ask the committee, what are your next steps? Don't be as quick to say how long this is going to take. But would you mind sharing with me the committee's next steps? Okay. Let's see. You've got time for one last question. Okay. Go ahead and put your question in. We've got 40 seconds left or so. All right. And I'll answer also a few questions after we go off, after I go offline, because there will be people. Any constructs for conducting mock interview, is it even advised? Any constructs? You've got to do mock interviews. You just got to do mock interviews. You absolutely have to do a mock interview. Whether it's you are applying as a youth pastor, minister of music, senior pastor, executive pastor, you've got to do a mock interview. Mock interviews calm you down. Okay. They calm you down. They just do. They calm you down. Um, I mean, I can't, I just highly advise them. I've helped place 48 people, and in each instance, we did mock interviews. Every single time we did mock interviews. In fact, even for my sons and daughters in ministry, even if they're applying for an academic position, we do some type of mock interview. You got to do it. You got to do the mock interview. All right, that's my time. Thank you for hitting my Cash App. I am an independent scholar, so you help me. You especially help me give honoraria to my guest. And I especially want to thank those who have blessed me as I've started my 8th year. Some people have given $8, $18. Somebody gave $28, and people have given $80. So please, if you can, hit my Cash App, and it is the $ Love My Work 123. $ Love My Work 123. And then join me next week. Join me on the 16th for talking about the financial health of our financial health and the financial health of churches for the next 4 years. That is so critically important. That's it. Last but not least, as I always say, share the video. It won't cost you anything. Share the video. God bless. Have a great week, everybody.